welcome in, and I'm talking about Grant from The Bachelor. And I did him and Litia's synastry. You can check that out on my channel. And now I want to look at the other two ladies that were finalists. Obviously, the winner, I think her name was Juliana, and the other one, Ashley. So we're going to look at their charts. I'll put them up on the screen so you can see. I'll put Grant's astrology up on the screen. And I just want to say, first of all, looking at these charts by themselves, there's no way, just like I could say the same thing about Litia, there's absolutely no way Litia would have won. There's absolutely no way that Ashley would have won. It happened exactly as it was supposed to. And I'm not going to say that based on the astrology that Grant and Juliana are going to be together forever or a very long time, which I'll get into that as well, or that they're like a perfect match. But the other two definitely had no, it's funny people watching the show, they know nothing about astrology, and they're probably rooting for this person and really liking this person, etc. And all that, none of that matters when you look at the astrology. You can see, in some cases it would be close, but in this case it's absolutely not close at all. And maybe you could have seen that without the astrology, but that's what I'm seeing looking at the charts here. So let's start with Ashley, since she got knocked out. And so I'll put her chart up on the screen here. And so she is she's a Pisces sun, and Grant is a Sagittarius sun. So I'm not sure if it was this video or not, where the other girl was also the other girl was a Pisces sun, Litia. So you have that Jupiter. The signs make a square, but you do have that both signs ruled by Jupiter. So you think that might be compatible, but oftentimes with Sagittarius and Pisces, or with Jupiter's involved, there's some kind of authority, or there's a sense of like, I know, I'm a know-it-all. So you kind of have that know-it-all syndrome. So she might be a know-it-all, he's a know-it-all in their own right. And that's just to me is something that where they can butt heads with. Doesn't necessarily mean that they can't work. It's just it's the first thing you notice when you think of maybe two sun signs ruled by Jupiter, versus one maybe he's a teacher and then the other one is more of a student. So let's like maybe you have a Sagittarius sun and a Leo sun, something like that. The Leo's the student, Sagittarius sun is the teacher. So let's move on here and look at their moon signs. Her moon is a Virgo. This is Ashley. She was born under a full moon, and his moon is that Capricorn. So we have again the same. I think the Earth moons. You think that would be compatible? Certainly, Capricorn moon and a Virgo moon would be compatible. And I really like Ashley's chart, which I'm going to get into. I actually knew somebody who had the same exact chart, and I don't have the birth times, by the way, for any of these. This is chart synastry without the birth time. And like I said, I knew someone who had the just about the same birthday, except he was an Aquarius, and his moon would have been different. But she was born under full moon, and personally, I've met many people with the sun in Pisces, moon in Virgo alignment, and it's a fantastic energy to be around. Not saying that they're perfect, but personally, I could see myself really getting along with this Ashley girl for that reason alone. I don't need to watch the show. I know in real life, seeing that's just one aspect that I would really enjoy. So there was that. I think that was very positive for her going into this. Also, I want to mention that Grant is a moon potentially here with the moon being close to Uranus. He might have a Uranus moon conjunction. And she has a stellium in the sign ruled by Uranus, Aquarius. She's Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Uranus, all in Aquarius. I have that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Sagittarius. Again, why I would favor this person personally. So he's got that kind of Aquarius moon with the Uranus moon conjunction. She's got all that Aquarius. You can see how that would get compatible. He also has Saturn in Aquarius, making a conjunction to her Venus, which I think could go both ways. Wouldn't be the best conjunction, but potentially for marriage, we could say maybe Saturn and Venus combined. If you can work through tough situations, and you're really mature, you could work things out. I think it would be a great synastry conjunction there. So there's that. Let's go and look a little further. Her Mars is conjunct the North Node, and it's retrograde. And here's the thing: this really has more to do with her than it does about him. If we look at her chart in isolation, she has this Mars retrograde. Litia had Venus retrograde, and for Grant, looking at his chart, he has no retrogrades. I really don't like to see any retrogrades, if possible, for a compatible partner for someone like him. And with that Mars retrograde, that really shows someone who's very cautious. Someone, you could see how in the show, the little bit that I watched, it sounded like she was very reserved. She wasn't getting a lot of attention. She wasn't getting the one-on-one time. And that is just very indicative of her chart with all the Aquarius, the Mars retrograde in Libra, the Mars and Venus in Air, the Moon in Virgo, the Pisces, all of that really shows like this person who's could be very humble. I don't know if she's humble, but could be very standoffish, could be just sitting back. Even if she tried to get attention, for some reason, just not going to get the attention that she would need on a show like that to really stand out. So there's that. That's just not going to be good for the situation. And then there's the Mars North Node, conjunction. A guy like Grant, I'm looking at his chart. You can see his moon in Capricorn. He has that Mars-Venus balsamic, which I've talked about in other charts. Just looking at his chart and looking at him as a man, I don't think he's going to really go for someone who's got that Mars North Node. And meaning like a person who's very Mars-like, very masculine, very maybe has a very masculine position in life, a go-getter, someone like that. I just don't, which we'll get into when we look at Juliana's chart. You can see the difference, and it's not that she's like, she has that full moon in Pisces Virgo, and she has her nodes in Pisces Virgo, but it's just that Mars being in that fruition state with the North Node, and then her Saturn is in Aries. Maybe you could say her test in life, her work in life, the big, really important, strong stuff in her life is going to be very masculine and very much her in charge in some way. And I don't think someone like Grant is going to really go for that. Looking at his chart, and then, even just really it comes down to that Mars-Venus balsamic in a masculine sign. She has her Mars-Venus in a masculine sign. Again, not to say that it couldn't work, but there's that. And then the Mars-Venus is in a inconjunct phase. It's known as the gibbous inconjunct phase. So this is going to be, she has a lot of inconjunct aspects to that Mars. You have the Mercury, you have the Venus. Well, actually, there's two. There's just the Mars and the Mars-Venus and the Mars-Mercury. And they said his Mars-Venus is balsamic. That just really indicates that she's going to have a lot of indecision or a lot of crossroads, a lot of crisis around relationships in her life, where he has maybe experienced that. He's aware of those dynamics. He's not going to choose somebody who has that. He's going to, like I said, he's going to be aware of it. He's got that balsamic phase. He is really looking for that ideal relationship. If he's a spiritual person, it's going to be more of a spiritual relationship. And someone with that aspect also can really be more choosy with their partner. Because they can really adapt to many different people. So there's that from that Mars Venus position. And if we look at her Mars, and we want to say, compared to his Venus, there's no aspects there. You could say it's in a very, well, you could say it's a sextile, but it's not even within 10 degree orb. And then his Mars and her Venus is in a sextile. So there's that. So that's a little bit of a positive. They do have that Mars Venus sextile. But really, does it have staying power? I'm not sure that aspect really is going to have staying power. We can look at the South Node. Her South Node is in Pisces. There's nothing on her. There's no South Node connection in the chart without seeing the time, of course. There's no planet there. Then we can look at the North Node in Virgo. There's no planet there. And we can look at the South and North Node in his chart, and we see the only planet that is there. There's a Pluto conjunct his North node. Of course, he does have Pluto conjunct his North node. So that would give a little bit of a pull that maybe that Pluto that he's really moving towards in his chart. We could say, that she might, the Plutonian aspects of herself, you could say the sexual aspects of herself, the deeper aspects of herself, those types of things. And maybe in this case it was superficial, like the sex appeal of Ashley really was pulling her to someone like Grant. We look at the chart with the Pluto conjunct the North Node. We can see that some aspect of Pluto will be in effect that's going to pull him to people who have Plutonian attributes, whether it's deep stuff or esoteric stuff or secrets or maybe just sex appeal. So there's that. So let's go and move on. Of course, I could talk forever about that. Let's move on to Juliana. And not to say that Juliana has the easiest chart, because as far as like masculine and feminine, because she does have Mars here conjunct her sun, and her Mars is in Aries where it rules. She also has Saturn in Aries that's ruled by Mars. But the sun is in a Venus ruled sign of Taurus, and the moon is in Cancer. And here is where we can see this is very similar to Ashley. Actually, we have an Earth and a water moon. An Earth sun and a water moon. But the thing is, they're reversed. And the sun is ruled by Venus. The moon is ruled by the moon in Cancer. This is to me, is a very nurturing and feminine, particularly nurturing alignment. So if we're looking at Grant, and if he's thinking he wants to have kids, he wants to have a family. I didn't really watch the show, honestly. I just watched here and there. But this is clearly going to be something that is going to attract him in the beginning, and say like the first 6 months of knowing this person. The Mars might throw him off a little bit, but again, he's limited by, he only has so many choices on the show. I think those two aspects are really going to overcome that. She also has Jupiter in Capricorn. And I think that's a little bit challenging, which I'm going to get into, but it is in Capricorn. Again, having this Jupiter moon in Capricorn Cancer. We can look at that moon and see that, well, there really isn't that much there to work with. But, with those aspects right there, I think that's going to really pull him in that direction of maybe he could see her as a potential mother or a wife. No judgment here. I'm just reading the chart and kind of going by how some people think. Not saying that this is how anyone should think, but we can go a little bit deeper here. We can see that her South Node is ruled by Aries too. But here's the thing: there's a Jupiter square the nodes and square those planets. That Jupiter in Capricorn, and it's really showing that she needs to move into that north node in Libra, ruled by Venus, which is in Gemini, which I'm going to get into. And you could see maybe that on the show, a lot of harsh background with that south node in Aries, and maybe Grant sees potential in her that she can move into that Libra, where she could potentially be trying to work things out, trying to have good relationships, trying to have a family, trying to be more work equally with a partner and have some equality there. Now, will she do it? This is where I think if we look at that Venus in Gemini, I think that's a tough place to have Venus to have that happen, because Gemini is restless, and Venus is a planet of love and relationships in a restless sign. It is making a trine to that north node, and as I said, that square can be that back and forth. It can give very much indecision, doubts, and there will be a time in the future where she probably will face up to that again. Will she go back to what she did before, whatever that is? I don't even know what that is, but looking at the chart, when Uranus is at 0, about to be at 0 degrees Gemini. When it hits Venus in about 3 or 4 years, what's going to happen there if they're still together at that point? Is it going to be a challenge? Is it going to be a challenge that can't be overcome? Or is it going to be something maybe positive that has nothing to do with this? We really won't know until it happens. We can also see Pluto. Pluto's going to be hitting her Uranus point at right around that same time. It's getting close to that point now. It's going to go retrograde. It's going to come back. And when we have these, among other aspects that we could probably find at that point, what's going to happen at that. And that's the only thing I would say about her chart, is that was she a gamble for the long term? Potentially. But, nothing's perfect in this world. If you wait for perfection, you're really going to get nowhere. So you really got to work with these things and do the best that you can. We can look at some other things. If anyone is still with me, her Mars is in fire. It's trining his Venus, and her Venus is making a loose sextile to his Mars. So both of them are really making contact. So there's that. The North Node in Libra is touching nothing in his chart. South Node in Aries is touching nothing in his chart. We have the North Node, and here's where it gets interesting too. His North Node, because these girls are fairly around the same age, so her Pluto is retrograde, by the way, which I'm gonna skip over that, but her Pluto is exactly on his North Node. There's a difference between that. I actually had the Pluto there, but Juliana's Pluto is right on that North Node. So there's that. And then there's that Venus. Here's the big one. This is the last thing I'm going to leave you with. The Venus is in Gemini, and it is making a loose trine to his South Node. Now, I think maybe from my limited the experience the past 10 years I've had with astrology, my educated guess would be, from my experience, would be that Venus trining that South Node would be not as good as if the Venus was touching the South Node in conjunction, but better to have that, I would say. So we have better to have that than nothing. So to have that Venus being close to a trine to his South Node is something that could have been a factor here as well. So again, probably could talk forever about this. I'm going to leave it go for now. That was a lot. So I hope you enjoy this, and thanks for watching.